Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out GITGUDRacing.com, where I'm offering the most accessible coaching sessions on the market.
Now for the track guide. For turn 1, I use as a reference for braking the 50-meter board. I want to brake slightly before it, and it's super important to have a good exit since it's a long straight. So you're gonna brake a bit earlier than you think, because in this case I cut myself short by braking this late. You want to brake a bit earlier than this and then quickly trail the pressure, because you don't want this inside left tire to be locking up. If this tire is gonna micro lock up, then you're gonna have a hard time bringing the car and taking this corner without delaying your throttle application. What happens for me is, so first of all, you don't want to use this curb, you want to apex around it, because you don't want to go too wide. You want to use this curb, but you can use this curb in a way that the car will bottom out, so there's a limit in which you can use. However, the most important thing that you should focus on is this time interval between going off throttle and going back on throttle. You want to make this interval as small as possible. You want to compress it as much as you can so that you can gain on this big straight. Because I have this small gap in my inputs, I'm gonna lose time now on the straight, so be mindful of that. For the next corner, I use as a reference for braking this exit road. As soon as I don't see it anymore, I'm applying the brakes, and I want to brake hard initially, like spiking it and then again quickly dropping, because it's the same principle. This track is a bit cambered in this corner, so you can use this grip change elevation to your advantage by putting the power down exactly at the compression. So right here, it's the moment in which I want to be back on power. It's super important to be back on power around here, because the moment that the suspension compresses, that's your signal to be back on power. That's the signal that the car can handle it, but until you reach it, you have to trail the brakes like I did here. Initially pick up a bit higher, but then drop it. So your shapes should look more like a triangle around here. Putting the power down and putting the power down confidently, staying on throttle. And around here, I don't like to have my left tire at the wall, because if I'm gonna mount this curb that much, the car is gonna bottom out. You can mount it a bit, so you can put your left tires on this curb, it's gonna be okay. But if you go to the wall around here, you will lose time. So just use the curb to put your left tires, nothing more than that. And now for the next corner, you want to bring your car to the right, so you will have this entry. And as soon as I feel again a bit of change in the elevation, I'm applying the brakes. I'm applying the brakes after this corner basically, but I feel that what the suspension is doing and I brake more on feel. I'm applying the brakes and I'm trying to bring the car as much as I can to the right, and then to trail brake with second gear and apex around this concrete wall. You want to be as close as you can to this wall while being on full throttle. So as you notice here, I'm already back on full throttle even before this left-hander ended. So right now I'm at full throttle. It's super important to do that, because you're gonna carry a lot of speed, since right now everything is flat out until the descent. There are some things though that you want to consider even though you're gonna do this flat out, and I'm using a low downforce setup, so it's a bit difficult for me. It's gonna depend based on your setup, how your climbing and descent is gonna be, but the first things first, you can use this curb. I find that if you don't have the wheel straight while you go on it, you will scrub a bit of speed. So if you're gonna turn a bit more to the left while doing it, you're gonna scrub speed. Ideally you want to keep the wheel straight, so you won't scrub as much speed. Again, you're gonna use all this track around here to open up the next one while being flat out. You don't want to mount this curb. Maybe you can mount it at the end of it, but if you're gonna mount it at the beginning, you will make your car micro jump. So not all the tires will make contact with the tracks and you will scrub a bit of speed. Now, Around here you want to take the shortest path possible, so if you're gonna go on the right side and then follow the track, that's not gonna be the shortest path. You will follow instead the white line on the left around here, and now you're gonna go diagonally towards this corner, so the next point is gonna be close to this part. You don't want to go as close as you can to the wall, because I found that even with the low downforce setup I can take this flat out. You're gonna use a bit more the steering wheel, so you're gonna use a bit more the fronts, but for a hot lap or qualifying and even in the race I wouldn't go as far as on the right side, since the car is gonna be perfectly capable of doing it. However, for the next corner you have to do that, because especially with a lower downforce setup you won't be able to take this flat out if you don't prepare it. So I'm at this curb and I turn slightly after this crest, so whenever I'm seeing the track again, I'm turning, I'm apexing around this white and red curb while being flat out, and I try to use maximum just a bit the right tires on this curb. If you're gonna put it on the grass, that's gonna be an off track of course, but also you're gonna bottom out since this curb has a bit of height, so really avoid it. Worst case scenario, put just your right tires on it. I didn't plan to use it, but I turned a bit too early previously. Now you're gonna bring the car to the far left and you're gonna start the descent. I'm applying the brakes before the elevation changes so that I will have a slight advantage on the straight line braking. So my initial braking is before going into the descent. I don't have too much experience on this track. I believe people can brake a bit later than what I do here, but it felt very uncomfortable for me to begin the braking after this. Maybe it depends on setup as well, so you're gonna have to do some trial and error. Of course, if you can brake even 5 meters later or 3 meters later, you're gonna gain a lot of time since you're flat out. You're arriving at this corner with 236 kph, so 5 meters is gonna mean maybe a tenth in this case. So applying the brakes, trail braking, and I want to take the shortest path, like going almost straight around here. Of course I have to steer just a bit right, but you want to mount this curb as much as you can, and for the next corner, while still trailing, I'm planning to go as close as I can to this part. However, I miss it a bit, so ideally you will have the car more to the right side, and if you have the car more to the right side, you can stay more on throttle. So I have here an attempt to be back on throttle, but I realized that I'm not having the proper line, so again I went back trailing. But as soon as you're gonna descend to this one and the suspension will compress, you're gonna apply the throttle and you will go full throttle 100%, as close as you can to this wall. You can mount the curbs, it's gonna be fine. For the next corner, however, that will lead to a big straight, and it's important to do a compromise here, so to go a bit slow in, so that you can be fast out on the exit. It's gonna depend on the setup. I found that I wasn't able to brake after this corner, so I begin my braking around here while still turning right. I'm applying just a bit of brakes to slow the car down, but mostly to give it a bit more front grip, because I want to be as close as I can to this right wall for the next corner. If you're not gonna brake or you're not gonna trail with these lower percentages, the car will be more in the center of the track and it's gonna be a pain to take the left-hander. So really what I'm doing with this low pressure braking is more to align the car to the white line, to the wall on the right side. And I'm beginning then the braking that has the purpose to slow down the car, because right now I just wanted to make it turn right, but right now I want to slow it down to take this corner. So I'm braking in a straight line as much as I can. I do some changes in the steering wheel which are not ideal. You want to brake with your steering wheel straight so you can maximize the efficiency under braking. And it's a long trailing. You're gonna go very close to this blue wall, but then you're gonna be on power and you're gonna maintain that power. I have a small dip here which is costing me time. Ideally you can do corrections under throttle, but it's almost always it's the best if you can do the corrections while still going up. So correcting, going up, correcting, going up, instead of going up, dropping, and again going up. So keep that in mind as early as you can here on throttle, because again, it's gonna be a big straight line, which will end in the next corner, which is here. I use as a reference for braking the 100-meter board, slightly past it. I'm applying the brakes. I brake very hard initially and I'm dropping off. Again, you want to drop off so your inside won't look up, but I'm going over this curb, so I'm going like this over it. You still can use it, but don't use it this much. Apex more around the white line, because now I'm pushed too far on the right, and it's okay because I have this curb and I still can carry the speed, but ideally you will use a bit less than what I do. So correcting it on the curb, now going into the last corner, which I think here I lost 2/10, so a bit nervous. I'm using the 50th as a braking point. I'm gonna brake slightly before it, but what I do here is that I am again apexing in the wrong spot and I have to delay my throttle application. So yeah, I lost here 2/10. I'm not really that good on this track, however, I still think that this lap can help someone. You will try here to basically what you want to do is to be on throttle as soon as you're in the middle of the curve. So right now you should be back on throttle, but in my case it was impossible. I was still trailing. I think I should have dropped the brakes. Not sure if the car would have turned, but ideally here, yeah, here is way too late. You want to go on throttle in the middle of the curve. That's gonna be the perfect line, and you have to follow this white line. So that's it. That's my lap. I hope you learned something, and I will see you in the next track guide. Bye bye.